Peace, peace, peace. You are now tuned into the vault. Peace, peace, peace. This is your host Sharif Ali. Just want to thank you for tuning in live. You're tuned into the vault, broadcasting live from YouTube, broadcasting live from Facebook. You know, we're gonna have a ton of people wanting to have a great conversation today. Today we're gonna be talking about putting everything that you own inside of a trust. So definitely want to address this. How do I start? I want to start out by thanking Darnell Gillard. He is a great individual. I just want to thank him because a lot of people they listen. I had like a bunch of people listen to the episode yesterday, and literally like no one told me or messaged me through my email. You know, y'all know my email hfrimperialvote@gmail.com, and no one told me that the email that the actual recording didn't go through. So I'm doing put everything you own in the trust again, part two. So today's gonna be a really good episode because I thought I brought it yesterday, so I actually took some more notes. It's like, okay, I guess I can go over more today than I did yesterday. So we're gonna go ahead and get straight into it as we always do. I just want to thank everybody for tuning in live. Catherine, Crystal, Taj, Horace, Demi, Kimberly, everybody. Thank you all for tuning in live. Even the YouTube channel, thank you all for tuning in live. The reason why I wanted to do this episode is because I recently have encountered a lot of people talking about how they went to a public lawyer and the public lawyer said, yeah, there's no need to put it, anything you have in a trust. And of course they're going to tell you that. First of all, they're a public lawyer. I do recommend talking to lawyers, but to have somebody that's a public lawyer tell you not to put things inside of a trust, first of all, as a trustee, we hire lawyers. So we should never be opposed to talking to a lawyer. But when a lawyer starts telling you what to do with your money or your estate, that's when you should have a problem. The second thing is family law. The way you perpetuate your family, the way you grow your family estate is by understanding contract law. Contract law is private law. Family law is private law. I have to keep letting you all know that. That's not something you're going to sit here and say, oh, I can just talk to someone in the public about it. Why? Why do you think trusts are such a secret? If you go to a law dictionary, you're going to be able to see that a trust is a secret. So why would you know how to deal and hide your family estate privately if you don't know what that is? So it's just a big deal. I see people talk about that all the time. I do want to let you all know that a trust is a separate, distinct legal entity, just like your social security number is a separate, distinct legal entity. You already know it's a legal entity. Why? It has a legal name. So don't think of this as some hard transition. Oh, I want to make sure that my family estate is being run properly. It's not. It's actually the best position to be in. Okay. One of the things, like I say, a lot of people don't know that a trust is a legal person. That's like one of the biggest things that you have to realize is that you're not your social security number. Just like a trust is an EIN number. That's like you walk around saying you're a trust. You don't say you're a trust. So it's the same thing with your social security number. You're not supposed to say, oh, I'm my social security number. You know what I mean? It doesn't work that way. So when you understand that, that's very important. Trusts never die. So when you understand that your trust never dies, then you'll never be like, I want to operate through my social. Why? Because your social dies. Your social doesn't allow you to perpetuate your wealth from generation to generation. This is how the Rothschilds and the Rockefellers are doing it. So it's up to you all. I know that this broadcast is not for everybody because there's a lot of people that don't want to perpetuate their wealth. They don't want to pass it on to their children, and that's fine. This broadcast isn't for them. This broadcast is for people that are going to step up to the plate and make it a point to leave their children and their families in better positions than the way that their parents and their grandparents left them. Because I come from a family where my grandmother said, I'm not leaving you anything. And she's definitely at the casino twice a week. So, I'm not upset about that. That's her ignorance. If she knew how to pass on wealth through a contract, she would. She didn't know about it. I had to learn this information from a private mentor. Okay? So when even individuals ask, well, how do you learn this information? Can I go to the law library? Can I read it in a book? You're going to learn about private trust from either me and private trustee training, which I provide at hfrn.vault@gmail.com, or you can go to my website, welcometothevault.com, and we provide private trustee training. You have to go to either a private mentor or be in a private community. I promise you. Why? It's called private for a reason. A lot of people think that they can get private information in the public, and it doesn't work that way. Okay? So the first thing, one of the things I do want to let y'all know is trust don't die. Sometimes people get it, and there's over 80 different types of trust. So when people say, oh man, I want to put my money away in this entity and it's going to be a tax-free shelter and all that stuff, trust, there's over 80 different forms of contracts. That's why trustee training is so essential. That's why I had a mentor. That's why it's so essential to be in a private community. Is because you have to understand that there's a specific style of entity that you need to use. I can point out to you in the public what entities are being used to control education and which ones aren't. Okay? They don't die though. That's very important. Okay? A lot of them avoid the traditional taxes such as death tax, inheritance tax, probate tax. That's like saying you work your whole life, you pay taxes your whole life, and then when you get ready to pass on your wealth to your children, here comes death tax. Most people don't even know there's a thing called death tax. They don't even know there's a thing called inheritance tax. So even when you try to pass on your wealth to your children are going to have to pay inheritance tax. I'm going to show you how rich people do it. Rich people set up a trust, which is a separate, distinct legal entity, and when they pass away, if they set up the proper entity, their children just take over the management of the entity. Why? Because the entity is a separate, distinct legal person. So, when individuals ask about these type of things, that's how you avoid taxes. Why? Because your children don't have to pay inheritance tax now. They're not in an inheriting position. It's nothing to inherit from their parent directly. They move into a managerial or a senior trustee position. And these are the things that we go over in trustee training. It's very, very essential for you to understand. Do for yourself now. Thank you for tuning in live on the YouTube. He says, do trusts have a end date, but corporations do not? Can you make a trust live on through the contract? So the first thing is, let's address that question. Does a trust have an end date? Everything has to have an end date. There is going to be an end of time. There was a beginning, so we obviously know that it's going to be an end. But the thing about trust, depending on the type of contract and the way it's styled and the way it's written, is a trust can actually the trustees, depending on how the contract is written, can continue to make the trust grow on and on and on and on. So it does it. You just keep renewing it. But and I'll point this out, not even on the front end with the corporation, because a lot of people say, well, corporations don't die. What makes you think a corporation doesn't die? A corporation definitely dies. Every year you have to renew the corporation on the state level. That means it dies, because if you don't renew it, the government doesn't acknowledge it in the state anymore. So you have to renew that contract every single year. You can't say that the corporation doesn't die if you're doing business illegally. But at the end of the day, you have to renew a corporation, especially a state-based entity, every single year. That's very, very important for you to understand. And that can you make the trust live on through the contract? Yeah, it can be written into the contract, and it just depends on the style of contract. That's why trustee training is so essential. That's why I do trustee training. It's because I understand that people are gonna have a misconception about trust when they learn about trust, but you got to know what entity can operate internationally. How you gonna go to a state lawyer and say, can you set up an international private entity for me? They're gonna look at you like, what's the point? You don't make $1 million. Okay, so we got another question on, what is this, Facebook. She said, are we speaking of irrevocable trust? A lot of times, and this is Letish Harris. Trust, I definitely recommend the irrevocable kind, because it's good to give up the assets, especially if you're the grantor, to give up the assets irrevocably. There's a specific way that we instruct our trustees to make sure that the trust that they're getting into, they're an adverse party, because a lot of people say, okay, well, I'm gonna put my assets in the trust and I'm gonna be a trustee. I mean, this is not me, this is the IRS. IRS be saying, well, that sounds like a sham. It sounds like you tried to hide your assets and avoid tax liability as your personally, but at the end of the day, you still own rights. Those are generally going to be amalgamated or considered a revocable trust. So it's very important for you to put yourself in a position where you own nothing, control everything. So being in that position means that you're not going to sit here and put yourself in a position where you're giving away assets directly to yourself, even though you're putting them in a trust and you maintain control as a trustee. That's not something that I would ever sit here and say that's a great position to be in, because when the community and what I teach in trustee training is substance over form. So your actions will dictate whether you're actually owning nothing, controlling everything. And the way things are set up, the way you start is the way you're going to finish. So you want to walk into situations as the adverse party, and we have a proprietary process on how we actually do that. That's why I do trustee training. It's for that reason. So very, very important. Another thing is trusts don't always need lawyers. I know a lot of people say, oh, well, can I go to a lawyer to actually set up a trust? First of all, there's two types of trust. The macro, not the micro, the macro. The macro is you got a public trust and a private trust. A public trust is set up under public jurisdiction, under state jurisdiction, okay? And then there's things called private trust. Private trusts are what rich people use. We utilize Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution. See, a lot of y'all try to say, oh, well, I'm a legal taxpayer, or I'm a taxpayer and I obey the law. So if you obey the law, then let's go through and obey all of it. Okay, not some of it, all of it. Article 1, Section 10 of the United States Constitution says, no state will impair the obligation of contracts. You all can look that up. It's a decent sized article, but it says in the Constitution that no state will stop you from contracting unlimited. That's perfect. So me and you can set up a contract privately. We don't need a lawyer. Okay? And if we want to get it adjudicated or have the matter adhered to, if we had to go into some courtroom, then guess what? We can go into a courtroom. Why? Because we can pick the jurisdiction that the contract is even heard in. That's how powerful contracts are. All of you all are signing contracts. Do you all know the different type of signatures that you can sign a contract in? A restricted or unrestricted signature? See, contract law, once again, is private law. It's not public law. So when you say, well, why didn't I learn this in school? You're not supposed to learn it in school. You got a public school education. Even if you went to traditional private schools, those educations are controlled by trust. That's why they have a board of trustees for the school. Okay? Everything is conducted in trust. They say, in God we trust. They utilize trust. That's why it's not a hard concept to grasp. The biggest thing is for you to grasp that, okay, I need to learn contract law, period. I need to learn how to administer my family affairs privately. Okay? And the United States respects privacy. So when people think, oh, they don't respect your privacy, no. First of all, rich people wrote everything. They wrote the tax law. They wrote the laws that are governing the country. Why would they do something to impair their right to move? They didn't. They just created watered down versions of things so the common individual can stay common. You have to become above average. What I'm talking about is not for average people that don't want to read. You have to learn how to protect your own family's estate. Not have somebody else protecting your family estate. Having some lawyer protect your estate. It doesn't work that way. Having a lawyer protect your estate. You have to protect your own estate. So you have to really grasp that wealth is passed on through trust. You all know this. The Rothschilds have done it. It's a great example. Banking. They did it through trust. Rockefellers did it through trust. Okay? You want to know how rich people pass on their wealth? They pass on their wealth through foundations, through charities. So when you think that, oh, wealthy people, they're so wrong, they're keeping all their money. They're keeping all their money. A lot of people talk about, I'll give you an example of how wealth is passed on. Bill Gates. Bill Gates was the richest man in the world at one point. You all know this. He went through an antitrust lawsuit. Do you see how that word just got brought up? It wasn't because Microsoft was creating a monopoly. You daggone right they created a monopoly. I'm going to show you how powerful trusts are. When J.D. Rockefeller, who's a Rockefeller, he said, competition is sin. People that utilize trust are looking to take over the competition and dominate, while everyone else wants to be average. So you have to make a choice in your life whether you want to be average or you want to dominate. Some people say, oh, I don't want to flex in competition. Rich people are always in competition, but they like eliminating competition. They like buying out the competition. So back to the point, Bill Gates was in an antitrust lawsuit, not in a monopoly lawsuit. First of all, he was creating jobs. Why would the government break up a company that's creating jobs? They're not. Okay? It was because he was collecting a lot of money tax-free, utilizing a specific tax structure through trust that I know about. Okay, so this is how I know he knows what he's doing. You want to know how I know what he's doing? Because after the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, after that antitrust lawsuit was set up, the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was created. See, and now you see, oh wow, X, Y, and Z amount of his shares are passed on directly to his foundation. You think Bill Gates doesn't manage the foundation? You think the foundation doesn't own the jets, owns the cars, owns the houses, owns the clothes, owns all the trips that he's taken? Yes, he's still doing the same thing. He passed on his wealth and put it in a tax-free shelter through a 501c3 entity. You all can go look it up. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is a private family foundation. Those are the entities that we train our trustees to learn how to utilize. Oh, people say, oh, well, he's doing something wrong. Last time I checked, he gives people scholarships. He does a whole bunch of stuff. I'm not, kissing him and saying he's the best man on the planet. What I'm sharing with you all is a structure, a thought process. Okay? So when it comes to Bill Gates utilizing a tax shelter called the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation, you think that his family's not going to stay in control of the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation? You think his children are going to benefit from that entity and its charity for generations to come? The Rockefeller Foundation is doing the same exact thing. The Kennedy Foundation is doing the same exact thing. Rich people pass on their wealth through charity. So when you want to knock wealthy people, you might want to think twice. Okay? This is not something that is a spooky thing. It's something for you to realize to say, how am I going to pass on my family wealth? Because I'm going to tell you right now, like I say, if you have anything in your name and you don't even have a will in place, because let me go ahead and talk about this will and this trust situation, because a lot of people say, well, can I just write a will? With a trust, you have more control. With a will, once you die, the lawyer that helped you set up the will, he's going to get his cut first before he gives the money to your children. Let's think about this here. So that's a major difference on having a will as opposed to a trust. Once again, you can go talk to a public lawyer. What I've been trained in and what I train our trustees in is what private mentors, private communities talk about. Wealth communities. Okay? So, you pass on your wealth through a charity, through endowments. Okay? Through entities that can actually give money away and then make money back tax-free. That's how business is done in the United States. You all know that every hospital, every library, every college is set up through an endowment, through a tax shelter, or through some foundation. You all know this, but why is it that you can't set up an endowment yourself? Well, guess what? There's only 3 entities that can create an endowment: a charity, a foundation, and a trust. So how can an individual taxpayer create an endowment to perpetuate their wealth for generations to come? See, wealthy people know how to operate through contracts. Article 1, Section 10. Not be subject to state jurisdiction with entities. Catherine said, would a UCC be useful if you put everything in a trust? A UCC is a whole different subject, because a trust, you're separating your quote-unquote natural self from the assets, whereas in a UCC, you claim the assets via a public notice. So it's very important to understand separation of assets and claiming assets. I have no problem with letting a trust claim assets. Why? Because I don't own it, then I'm not liable for it. That's very, very important. Do it yourself. He says, can a private trust own a public trust through contract? Of course, a trust, let's just get this straight. A trust is a legal person, just like your social security number. It can buy, hold, and sell property. Okay? So, it can do those things. The only thing it can't do is vote. That's the only thing that trust isn't doing. Okay? Gobi, peace for tuning in live, Gobi. He says, hey brother, appreciate all the information. Just a quick question. Can you provide us with several books that governs private contracting? Okay, so right now we're on the public airway. Where are we going to go in the public to get any private information? That's not going to happen. That's why I conduct private trustee training. Okay, you can go, like I told you, contract law is private law. Can you go into a library and learn what public jurisdiction is talking and saying about public contracts? Yes, you can. Private means private, public means public, and they don't mix. That's why you don't hear about the specific structures being stated in the public. Okay, there's many different types of trust. There's over 80. Why don't you know which one specifically to use? Because that's private information. Private people don't want to deal with public people. Why? Because public people are liabilities. They want to own everything. They're gonna compromise the entities, the way that we do business. So we got Do It For Yourself again. He says Walt Disney used a lot of trust to create Walt Disney in Florida land grant. They say Florida is a land grant state. I mean, a land trust state. Every state is a trust state. Every state utilizes Article 1, Section 10, which is no state will impair the obligation of contracts except for Louisiana. Louisiana is using French and Napoleonic law, so it's a rather weird jurisdiction to be in. But see, rich people use the law. That's the unfortunate part, is that the law is not taught to students. Why do you think the law is not taught to students? Because it's dealing with contracts. It's dealing with basic grammar, reading and writing. And if you exercise your right to contract unlimited, you would need less government. But most people don't understand that. So if you all have any more questions, feel free to type them into the chats. I will answer them. I just want to thank you all for tuning in live. Like I say, at the end of the day, it's about putting your life inside of a contract, and not utilizing the government default, the government social insurance, because you don't know how to take care of yourself, called the what is that called? Social Security Administration. Wait until you're 65 to get your money. They got SEC laws and Federal Trade Commission laws that say you're not even privy to certain type of financial information if you don't make a certain amount of money. Why is that? Because they want to protect people. They say they're protecting people from their own ignorance, and that might be so. So certain pieces of information don't even get to the public because people are not able to handle that type of information. I got broker buddies that are professional investors, sit at home, make thousands of dollars a day, and they don't go and become a professional trader. They're just traders. But because of the SEC and other organizations, they say you can't call yourself a professional trader because other people, you're going to be liable for what you tell people. And that's why when people say, oh, well, how are you able to sit here and talk about contracts? No, what I do encourage you, talk about law. I first of all, if you're not able to talk about Article 1, Section 10, please stop. This is a free country, freedom of speech, for you to be able to actually talk about those things. It's very, very important. So, I really encourage you all to study the law. A lot of people don't want you all to study the law, but that's unfortunate. We got Norm Ross. He says, what documents give birth to a trust to recognize it in a court of law? He said a trust indenture. Like I said, I come from a specific, style of mentorship when it comes to trust. Some indentures, they do allow the trust to start up right away. But there are other elements that can actually help create a trust. And those things are what we go over in trustee training. So if you all would like to be involved in trustee training, you can email me and my team at hfrn.vault@gmail.com. We do private events. These events are catered towards individuals that want to develop a structure for themselves privately and learn how to manage the entities privately. As a trustee, you're an asset manager at that point. Once you are an asset manager, you have to learn how to manage those assets and grow those assets, protect those assets. See, there's 4 keys to wealth. First thing is you got to protect it. Everybody thinks it's all about how much money you make. It's not. Everyone knows that. It's about how much you keep. It's not about how much you make. That's why you on the hamster wheel, because it's about how much you make. It's not about how much you make. It's about how much you keep. So the first thing is protecting it. The second thing is growing it. How do you grow it? How do you grow it? That's where trustee training comes into play, because we make it a point to make sure our trustees have access to a community of CPAs and attorneys and people that deal with insurance and people that deal with trading, people that deal with mining, all of those different things. All of those things are in a private setting. Why? Because once again, if you want to work a job, why would we talk about this to you in the public? So the second thing is growing that wealth. The third key to growing or having your wealth in the correct position is to preserve the wealth. How do you preserve the wealth? You learn how to set up additional entities, whether it's additional trust, whether it's a foundation. That's what Bill Gates did. He made sure that his wealth is going to be passed on from generation to generation in perpetuity. That means forever. It's not an accident. It's called knowledge that's not given to people that want to make $30,000 a year. You don't have a need for it. Even if you want to make $100,000 a year, you don't have a need for the information. It's about people that want to dominate. So, you have to learn how to preserve your wealth. And the last thing is you have to learn how to put your wealth in the correct tax position. Okay? You think wealthy people are paying taxes. I love having Robert Kiyosaki as a mentor. He say wealthy people don't pay taxes, and you all think they own. Then you all got a president of the United States that sat there and said, "I don't have any tax returns to show you all." Why? Because he has it all in a trust, and you all still want to walk around and focus on how much you can earn. You think he ain't earning no money? I'm sure he's got a helicopter, a jet, quite a few mansions, a lot of $500,000 pair of shoes, suits and all, and he doesn't own one dime of it. That's why he doesn't have to release his tax record. He's in a public position. When you're in the public, everything's subject to review and examination. Don't think he's an exception. He's an exception because he understands the tax law. When you go back and look at those interviews with Hillary and him, he says, "I know the tax structure better than anybody." So why would it not encourage you all to learn the tax structure? But no, people want to go do other things. So those are the four keys to wealth: growing it, protecting it, growing it, preserving it, and passing it on in the correct position. Okay, I'm gonna go to another question. We got this was Letish. She says, "I'm from Louisiana. She said, would a trust still work for protecting me?" Of course it is. It's a contract. Remember, Louisiana is actually under the United States. You have a very unique situation. I always used to wonder about that until I dealt with clients and trainees, trustees that actually that are from Louisiana. Like I say, in trustee training, we go over to make sure that you know how to actually make sure that your entity is in the correct position, especially if you're living in Louisiana. Even though it uses French and Napoleonic law, there's still ways to actually mitigate your tax liability, even in that situation. We have to deal from a private perspective, the right to contract perspective. A lot of people don't understand that. You always have the right to contract. Louisiana falls under the United States, so it does give you the right to contract. It's just a specific way that you want to go about doing that. And if you want to know more about that, Letish, then you can email me at hfrn.vault@gmail.com, and we can go over that. Okay? I'm going to go to Norm Ross. Norm Ross says, "How does one position themselves to make the transition from public to private?" The first thing is I think I did an episode on this the other day. You have a job, so you should at least get a family trust, and that's so critical. You need why? Because your money's already taxed as an employee. If you're a public citizen, public employee, your money's already taxed. You already know that. Bam, it went through that process. Now you have an asset. Once again, trustee training is for asset managers, not people that just want to keep their money, quote unquote, see how it's yours, and put it inside of a bank, where the bank becomes the trustee and the asset manager of the monies, because now they're lending it out to other people. When you're a trustee, you learn how to become and think like a private banker. That's important. Why do you think banks are a trust? Asset managers are just that. They learn how to manage assets. They learn how to grow assets, protect assets, preserve assets, and pass them on tax-free. That's very important. So you make that transition by definitely getting in trustee training and setting up at least a private family trust for yourself, so you can at least pass on your wealth and don't have to go through death tax, probate tax, and inheritance tax. Passing on your wealth to your children, giving them some type of tax liability, that's crazy. But I understand the average individual doesn't know this. And that's why the Security Exchange Commission has laws in place to say, well, if you don't make a certain amount of money, it doesn't matter anyways. Just, let them die and they don't give their money away. So it's important for you to understand those structures. It's important for you to get into, like I say, the law library does help. I like the law libraries in a lot of different cities. But at the end of the day, going in there, you have that's contract law from the public perspective. So I like reading it because I have a private system in place which I teach, so you can learn how to look at that information from a private perspective and say, okay, this is what I shouldn't be doing in the public in the first place. So it does help to actually go into the law library, because then you can say, okay, these are the things I shouldn't be doing in the public, whereas in the private, it's a little bit different, which is very, very important. So that's an important perspective. Shout out to Dennis Febo for tuning in live. Always appreciate that, brother. Good brother up in Jersey, doing the good work, helping out inmates actually get their lives together once they make that transition back into the public. So shout out to Dennis. Appreciate you for tuning in live. Do for yourself. Hey man, look forward to you joining Trustee training as well. I just want to let you all know that definitely everything is changing because I've been doing a lot on Facebook. Um, I've been doing a lot on Facebook. Norm, I'll definitely answer your question. I've been doing a lot on Facebook recently as far as advertising it, so a lot of people have actually enrolled in private trustee training. But I like holding things in a very controlled manner. It's own nothing, control everything. So I just want to make sure that everyone is getting the proper training that they need. As far as training, we do events. The next event's going to be in California. It's going to be in Northern California. Just making sure that we can finalize those things, and it'll be in December. So just really excited about that. And I'll definitely get those details to you, or if you want to get those details in advance. And this is to answer Norm's question. The private trustee training system email is hfrn.vault@gmail.com. Vault like VAULT. And just really want to make sure that you all have the proper education as a trustee, because anybody could get in a trust. A lot of people think, oh, you just get into a trust, you can let a lawyer manage it. I've had so many people tell me, I'm talking to you all straight up right now, mentors tell me, why would you talk to people about this information? They don't even have $1 million in assets. And I said, well, this is the question I love answering. If somebody has a job, you should at least have a family trust so you can pass on your wealth. That's it. You got to have that in place. If you don't, what's the point of working your whole life to sit it in somebody else's hands as far as the asset management position goes? So it doesn't behoove you to put yourself in a position where you can manage your assets through a trust, for sure, or manage the assets of the family, where the family trust can pay for your children's education. It can pay for health care. It can pay for the cars. It can pay for the house that you quote unquote live in as the trustee. Why? And that's an expense. See, the thing that people been convinced is they learn everything's personal. That's why they got everything in their name, and that's why they liable for everything. Car insurance, house insurance, health insurance. You're personally liable for everything. Whereas a trust is a legal person. It can own those things too. It can own your health insurance. It can own your car insurance. It can own your house insurance. It's a person. You can go look that up. So it's very important for individuals to put themselves in a position of own nothing, control everything, because then you get rid of liability. Then you can turn your life back into a business, because that's all it is anyways. It's a big business. But see, a lot of people haven't been trained to understand business because they've been trained to get a job. And when you got a job, you're liable for the gas that you riding into work. You're liable for the car. You're liable for the insurance. You dang near liable for your health insurance, and it's not even an expense. Even for the house, paying for the house. The only thing I think that's a write-off in the house is the interest. So it's very important to put yourself in a position to own nothing, control everything, so you can actually take advantage of what? Being a business, having your life conducted as a business. It's very, very essential. So just excited. Corey, thank you. Appreciate you, Corey. I'm still here. Norm Ross said, where in Northern California? Probably the Bay Area, like San Francisco, Oakland area. And for all you all that are haters of Oakland, I actually have traveled quite a bit to Oakland, and Oakland is not what people portray. It is actually a beautiful place. A lot of rich history. Don't think it's the slums. It's not East Oakland. West Oakland is very developed. There's places out there you can't even get an apartment for 1,000 square feet for $4,000. So please, when you guys thinking of Oakland, don't think of Oakland as a bad place. It's a beautiful place. I encourage you all to get out to the West Coast and travel. So everybody, if you all want more information, you can go to welcometothevault.com. Everything is spelled out. Welcome to thevault.com. and get on the email list and get subscribed to where you can get some updates and newsletters and things like that. As far as details go, once again, getting into private trustee training is hfrm.vault@gmail.com. And when people ask, are we on the up and up? Like I say, we deal with the law. The first law that I quoted to you, you have to understand and have ingrained in your mindset if you want to make the transition from public to private. It's called Article 1, Section 10. Okay, no state can impair the obligation of contracts. The only person that might have an issue with that is Letish, and I think that's because she's in Louisiana. That's it. And so she still can work around that because Louisiana falls under the United States. So there's ways to get around that. There are properties being held in contracts all over the United States. That's what makes this country so unique, is that contract law makes the law. Contract makes the law. Whatever's written in the contract is a binding agreement. Okay, so very, very essential. Just the way you want to be able to do business, living your life through contracts, owning nothing, controlling everything. I'll take a couple more questions here, and then I'm pretty much going to roll out. But I just want to thank you all for tuning in live on Facebook and as well on YouTube. It's always a blessing. This is what I live for. I look forward to creating a community of people that want to live their life with some of the highest level of integrity and utilizing contracts to actually do so, and not be at the beck and whim of some state-based entity called a S Corp, C Corp, or LLC. Do they have some advantages? Yes, they do. That's why you see most of your corporations, they're all LLC, they're S Corp, or C Corp up. But on the back end of that, you hear about private corporations, and those entities are owned by private trust. Okay, it's just that simple. So Mo Rego say, can I post the email for the training? Yeah, give me 1 second, Mo. I'll post it directly on this Facebook situation here. Just want to thank you all for tuning in live, and we'll go from there. So just thank you all for tuning in live. Feel free to share this with your friends and family so you all can become a closer community, because that's what it's all about. It's about you all becoming a closer community. The way you hold your communities together is by what we call trusteeship. Yes, what is it? Cornelia, beautiful name. Welcome to the vault.com is the website. It's all about being a trustee of your life, being a steward of your money. Okay, and not a steward of your money, but a steward of money. We practice stewardship. Okay, that's a high level and a high level of responsibility. I'm not talking to people that want to cut corners. I'm talking to people that want to have high levels of integrity and accountability. What I love about trust is that they create transparency. The thing about private trust is you have to be in one to see the transparency. But that's the best part about it. As a trustee, we can work together and create transparency within our communities, and not have, being at the beck and whim of some public entity that, the laws change for public entities all the time. Why aren't they changing for private corporations? You all hear all the time that private entities are, the private sector is doing well. The public sector is the one that generally handles all the debt. So I think everything should be put everything you own in a trust. You have to. Why? So you can get rid of your liability. Stop trying to own everything. That's a public mentality. Own nothing, control everything. That's what we do over here. Peace. Love you all. Thank you all. Look forward to hearing from you. hfrm.vault@gmail.com.